Hello children, I hope you all are happy and safe today. Welcome to our special English hour. Here, every day, we will learn something new in a fun and exciting way. Are you all ready to have some fun? Let's go. We all know that words are very important for a language. So now we will learn some new words. I want all of you to listen to these words carefully. Our first word is coat. 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 Our second word is loyalty. 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 Our third word is advisor. 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 Our fourth, traveler. 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 Our fifth and the last word is frightened. 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 We all have friends, right? In fact, we have a lot of friends at a lot of different places. For example, we have some friends at school, some in our neighborhood, and some at our tuitions. But we all know that only a handful of them are our true friends. Do you all know the meaning of a true friend? A true friend is someone who has been with us through thick and thin. Someone who has been with us through happy times and sad times. Someone who has been with us when we needed them the most. And someone we can be ourselves without the fear of judgment. We talked a lot about friendship and what it means to be a true friend. So, we all know that a true friend is someone who walks in when everyone else around you walks out. This means that a true friend is someone who sticks by you when the entire world decides to leave you. In today's story, we will learn a similar story about loyalty and friendship. Please open page number 10 of your English Balbharati textbook. If you have a textbook, point your finger on the words as I read them. And if you don't have a textbook, please don't worry. Listen to me carefully. The name of our chapter is The King's Choice. There was once a lion who was king of the forest. He was big and strong and very fierce. All the other animals in the forest called him king. They brought him gifts from every corner of the forest. But the more the lion had, the more he wanted. A king must have a goat, he said to himself one day. He called a fox to his side. You are known to be a wise and clever creature, fox, said the lion. I want you to be my advisor. Thank you, your majesty, said the fox, bowing low. The lion next called a leopard to his side. You are known to be watchful and swift of foot, leopard. I want you to be my bodyguard. Thank you, your majesty, said the leopard, bowing low. The lion then called a vulture to his side. You are a bird, vulture, and can fly high. You are to be my messenger. Thank you, your majesty, said the vulture, bowing low. The fox, the vulture, and the leopard took an oath of loyalty to the king. The king promised to give them food and protection. We saw that there lived a king, a lion, in the forest. Everyone in the forest called him king because he was big, strong, and fierce. Everyone in the forest gave him gifts from all the corners of the forest. But this king was never satisfied. Then one fine day, he decides that he wants to have a court. A court is a group of people who come together and make important decisions for the well-being of everyone. Here it means the well-being of everyone in the forest. The king first calls for the fox. The king wants fox to be his advisor. An advisor is a person who gives advice and guides us. Here, he wants the fox to be his advisor because the fox is very wise and clever. He wants the leopard to be his bodyguard. Now, this is because the leopard is very quick and swift. He is also very watchful. That means that he is always alert about his surroundings. He is the best candidate to be a bodyguard. And finally, the king calls for the vulture. The king wants the vulture to be his messenger. This is because the vulture is a bird and he can fly high up in the sky. Now all three of them are the king's court. They pledge an oath of loyalty with the king. Loyalty means to be faithful and loyal to someone. To always stand next to him and support him. So all three of them, the fox, leopard and vulture, pledge their loyalty to the king. And the king in return promised them protection and food. For some time, all went well in the court of the Lion King. The three courtiers never opposed the king. His wishes were law. Whenever he rode, they stood in awe. Whenever he took a walk, they followed him. Whenever the Lion King went hunting, they found the animals for him to kill. And after he had his meal, he left the remains for them. So they always had enough to eat. For some time, everything in the king's court went perfectly fine. No one ever dared to oppose the king. They never said anything against the king. Every time the king rode, they stood in awe. And every time the king walked, they followed behind him. Now, every time the king went hunting, they found animals for the king to hunt. And after the king was fed, he left the leftovers for his courtiers. One day, the vulture came back from a flight. "Your Majesty, have you ever eaten a camel?" he asked. "It is very tasty. I ate it once in the desert." The lion had never seen a camel, but he liked the idea of trying camel's meat. "But where can we get a camel?" he asked. "There is a desert some miles away," said the vulture. "I was flying over it when I saw a lone camel not far away. It looked big and fat." The lion looked at his other advisors. They were wise and experienced. He wanted their opinion. Now the fox and the leopard did not know the desert, but they did not want the vulture to seem wiser than them. So they said, since it was the vulture's idea, he should lead the way. Here we saw that the vulture was back from his flight. He goes up to the king and says, "Have you ever eaten a camel's meat?" And he also tells him that a camel's meat tastes very good. Now the lion had never eaten a camel's meat, but we all know that the lion loves getting more and more things. So the greedy lion immediately said, "Where can we find a camel?" The vulture then said that I had seen a lone camel walking through the desert not far away. Once the lion hears this, he wanted the opinion of his courtiers. But this time, the leopard and the fox lived in the forest, so they had absolutely no idea about the desert. But the fox and the leopard did not want the lion to think that they were not as wise and smart as the vulture. Guess what they did? They said that since it was the vulture's idea, the vulture should lead the way. Early next morning, the lion and his court started off on the camel hunt. They reached the edge of the desert easily. But after they left the shelter of the forest, the day became very hot. The sun shone down with fire-hot rays. High up in the cooler air, the vulture flew. "Hurry along," he called. "The camel is not far off." But the lion could not hurry anymore. The hot sand had burned his paws. He could go no farther. "Stop!" he shouted to the others. "Let's go back to the forest. I do not care to try camel meat." The Lion King's advisors were frightened. The forest was far behind them and they did not know how to get the lion back home. The leopard wanted to run away. The vulture wanted to watch and wait and eat the lion later on. But the clever fox thought of a plan. Off into the desert, he ran, saying, "I will bring some help." After running for some time, the fox found the camel. The camel was indeed surprised to see him. "Hurry up, friend camel," said the fox. "Our king wants you at once." "Your king?" said the camel. "Who is that? I do not know any king. I only know my master, for whom I carry goods across the desert." Now this wise fox has a very good plan. He runs off into the forest saying that he will get some help. Who do you think he meets? He finds the camel. He asks the camel to come with him because his king wants to meet him. But since the camel did not live in the forest, he did not know about any king. Camel lives in the desert. So the camel only knows about his master. The master is someone who asks the camel to carry luggage on his back. So the camel says that I will not come with you. "Our king, the lion, has killed your master," said the fox. "Now you are free and the lion has invited you to live at his court. Come along." The camel followed the fox. When the fox and the camel reached the lion's camp, the vulture and the leopard were surprised. Even the lion looked pleased, in spite of his burnt paws. The camel was presented to the king. He agreed to serve the lion in return for a home at his court. The very wise fox tells the camel that their king, the lion, had killed his master, and he also has invited the camel to his court to live with them. Hearing this, the camel is very happy. Finally, he is free of his master. As soon as they reach there, the vulture, the leopard and the lion are shocked to see them. They were all thinking, how did the fox convince the camel to come to them? After all, they were all planning to eat him, right? "Get on the camel's back, Your Majesty," said the fox. "We will return home." The lion at once jumped onto the camel's back. His courtiers, the fox and the leopard, jumped up behind him. And with the vulture flying ahead as a guide, they set off on the long journey back to the forest. When the travelers reached the forest, they were all tired and hungry. The fox, the leopard and the vulture looked at the camel. Then they looked at each other and smiled hungry smiles. They had bought the camel for the king's dinner. Now it was time for the feast. Now we know why the fox is the advisor. We know why he is so wise. He asked the king to jump onto the camel's back so all of them can go back home. As soon as they reached the forest, all of them are very tired. All these travelers are now hungry. They look at each other and they are thinking that finally it's time to eat the camel. Travelers here means people who travel all around the world. But in this context, it means the vulture, the fox, the leopard and the lion who want to travel into the desert in search of the camel. Do you really think that the lion will eat the camel? After all, the camel did help him, right? The Lion King knew what his courtiers were thinking. He called the camel to him. "Friend camel," he said, "I have to thank you for saving my life. You are welcome to live at my court as long as you like. I promise you my protection." The lion's courtiers were shocked. Had they not risked their lives so that he could try camel meat? And the king wanted to let the camel live? The courtiers were not pleased with his decision. Yet they could do nothing. Now the lion's paws were so badly burnt that he could not go hunting. But that did not keep him from growing very hungry indeed. The king knew what his courtiers were thinking, so he called for the camel. As soon as the camel arrived, he thanked the camel for saving his life. He also told him that he, as a friend, can stay in his court as long as he wanted, and that the lion, as a king, would protect him. Hearing this, all of his courtiers were shocked. After all, they had risked their lives so that the king could eat the camel's meat. Then why was he letting him go? "Fox, leopard, vulture," he shouted, "don't you see that I'm ill and hungry? Go and get me some food." The courtiers had to obey the king. So out they went. But they did not go far. They sat down in a safe place and discussed what they could do. "I know," said the fox after a while. "We shall make the camel ask to be eaten." He told the others of his plan. They all agreed, so back they went to the king. Now, since the king was ill and hungry, he asked his courtiers to go and find food for him. All of his courtiers, that is the fox, the leopard and the vulture, went out to the forest. But they did not go far away. They were all very unhappy with the king's decision of not eating the camel. So they sat down in a safe place and discussed what to do next. This is when the wise fox came up with a plan. He said that they will make the camel ask to be eaten. This means that they will create a situation where the camel will be forced to ask the king to eat him. Now, hearing this very good plan, all of them were pleased. So they went back to the forest. First, the vulture stepped forward. "Your Majesty," he said, bowing low, "we have found no food, but we cannot let your Majesty suffer. I am a poor creature. Eat me." The fox pushed the vulture aside. "I have more meat on me," he cried. "Eat me, your Majesty." Now the leopard rushed forward. I am not much good, he cried, but I could make a meal for the king. The camel listened to all these offers. He must do as such, he thought. Your Majesty, he said, I too am willing to give my life for you. Please eat me instead of these old friends of yours who will be more useful than I am. This was what the fox, the leopard, and the vulture were waiting for. They prepared to jump at the camel, but the lion stopped them. As soon as they reached the court, all three of them acted on their plan. First, the vulture came forward. He told the king that they could not find any food, but since he was a poor creature, the king could eat him. Right after the vulture came the fox and then the leopard. All three of them offered themselves to the king. Hearing this, the camel thought that he must do the same thing. Then he also offered himself to the king. He said that he could eat him instead of his friends, who would be much more useful to the king. Hearing this, all the three courtiers were very excited. This is exactly what they had wanted. And as soon as the camel said this, they were ready to pounce on him. But the king stopped them. Why do you think the king stopped them? Let's find out. You are all good and loyal subjects, he said. My heart is touched by your offers. I accept them all. I shall eat you in the order in which you offered yourselves. The vulture, the fox, and the leopard were shocked. Away flew the vulture, away ran the fox and the leopard. They were never seen in the forest again. The lion laughed to see them go. Then he turned to the camel and said, You have been loyal and good. You shall be my friend as long as we are alive. The camel was happy and grateful. The lion thought to himself, to be king is good, but to be kind is better. I hope you all liked today's session. Today, we learned a very important message. A true friend is someone who believes in us, understands us, and accepts us just the way we are. Now, I want all of you to share this same message with your family and friends, and also explain them the importance of a true friend. I will see you all in the next session. Until then, stay home, stay safe, and bye-bye.